And so we started living together.
Yeah.
And because it was a marriage that wasn't foundationally sound, and so there was abuse. And when abuse, I mean a slap here and there, a popo thrown on your face here and there, a few things but it went on. But there was a lot of verbal abuse, minimizing.
What would he say?
Oh, whoa, first of all, honestly, and I'm saying this with all sincerity, and I know this may not sound big, but in this marriage, I knew I was the ugliest human being, and I was living with him as a favor. And he made sure that that is what he told me every day. I mean, I don't know whether you understand waking up and somebody telling you, Manze siwe ni ugly. God, you're so ugly. I've never seen such an ugly person in my entire life. I'm doing you a favor staying with you. And so I believed him. I really believed I was ugly. I never used to look at the mirror. I still have a very skewed relationship with the mirror because I'm always like, akinjariwe ni mzee lakini. So anyway, so that was it. And he made it a call and I believed him. And if anybody told me you're beautiful, I'd be so like, of course they're not talking to me. They're obviously talking to someone else, like who is beautiful here. I was sad. I didn't have friends. First of all, I wasn't allowed friends. His family was my friend. And I wasn't seeing my dad as much because I don't know how I got excluded from having friendships. It was either church, work, home. That was it. That was the extent of my life. I had a driver, I had a bodyguard. Yeah, so it's not like I could come and have coffee with you. They'll go back and report me. So I got pregnant the first time. And because we had all these scuffles, he beat me up. And I lost the first pregnancy. Yeah. And then subsequently I got pregnant again. And I lost it too because vita tu za hapa na pale. And I was at the gym because I had to maintain a certain size.
Yes.
Yeah. I was in the gym. He told me, come home now. So I went home. Lynn, nilichapwa vita. It was so bad. My child was in the room, so she saw. But I was unconscious. And so he was so scared that he had killed me. That is how bad it was. That he put me in a bathtub with water and left, closed the house, and drove away. So if I was to die,
they would say you drowned.
They would say I drowned. Or somebody had come to the shop and said I was beautiful. And somehow he had informers who would tell him things like those. So he said, baba wako amekuja kwa duka. And this is a fit man who was boxing. Lynn, nilichapwa. I don't hear from this year. So we went, so now I couldn't hear. So, when 1 year is hurt, even the other year wasn't compensating. So I couldn't hear for like 24 hours. So he had to take me to hospital. And the doctor is telling me, what happened? I fell in the bathtub.
Bumpy is like, no, it's okay, let her spend. And then she can leave in the morning. I'm like, you know what? That's what you want. I will go to my mom's house and you will stay here with your guest. And in the morning when she goes, you will tell me, your wife, if you want me back into our house. And he slapped me. And I and the lady all looked at him like he was crazy. This lady just took her clothes and left. And I was like, oh, now you're slapping me in front of another woman. He slapped me again. And I'm like, okay, I think Bumpy, something's wrong with you in your head. Because you can clearly see that I have your child in my tummy, right? And I feel like he was in a trance of anger. The moment I said, I'm having your child in my tummy, I'd see him like awaken from something. Like he'd shake his head like he's just waking up from a trance. I went to the bathroom. I showered. He wants to get into the bathroom with me. And I'm like, don't try me. He threw that phone across and it hit me straight on my forehead. And I was like, oh, so we are still hitting me and hitting now me with things interesting. So one day he wanted to be intimate with me and I told him I don't want. He got very, very mad. He pinned me on the wall. His hand is on my neck and he got intimate with me with like in that specific position.
Oh my God.
I just left, went showered and just moved on.
You mean he raped you?
Yeah, that's the word, right? Next time he asked politely, can we be intimate? I'm like, no. Why not be with them? He's like, no, I want to be with you. But as usual, you're not a submissive person. You're not peaceful. And I'm like, and I won't be. If me being that means that you're allowed to talk ill about me, and everything, then no. And I'll storm out. He came, pulled my hair, slapped me, punched me, and I'm like, why? And then at the end, he pushed me towards the wall that I hit the corner of the wall. So I had like, my head was swollen. And he apologizes as usual. And I also apologize. And that was a cycle for like 2-3 months. How to ask submissively talk to your husband so that he can just talk to me without the anger, without the hitting. I went, spoke to him. He said something outrageous, of course, and I went crazy. I'm also talking back. He's hit me. Makia was hit last night. Today's another night. I'm being hit again. He went crazy. He punched me. At this moment, I was punched in my ribs and I could feel I'm not breathing. And I could feel like I'm tasting blood in my mouth. And I'm like, what's going on? By the time I'm processing this, he slapped me. He's pulled my hair. He's banged me on the wall. I can hear my daughter scream and I'm like, Bumpy, our daughter is screaming because you're making me scream. Have some decency. And he's like, I don't care. I really don't care. You're here disrespecting me, disrespecting this household, disrespecting our marriage just because of some women. And I'm like, wow. It was never him. He was never at fault. It was always me. And I was hit. And by the time he was going to now get my daughter because she was crying, I was not bleeding. My eyelid had swollen because I had banged myself on the wall. My rib felt like it was.
But unfortunately, it didn't work. And then there's emotional violence, and it even escalated to physical violence. And so, again, it escalated to emotional and physical violence that my daughter saw.
Oh.
And it really wounded her. Also, my mother saw it, because at some point after the wedding, she stayed with us for a while. So they both saw it, even to a point my mom was like, Nata kwenda ushago, I don't want to stay with you guys anymore. Like,
funny thing is, yes, I did. I never said those dark parts. Why? Because Bumpy and Bumpy's mom always told me that marriage stuff are never told to anybody else other than the household you're in. So according to Bumpy's mom, it was, if you're not able to solve it with Bumpy, come tell me. So I tell her, yes.
And all this time I'm being beaten because sitaki aibu. You don't want the neighbors to hear. I never screamed. I never used to scream. So ulikuwa unanichapa na like that. Because I don't this which neighborhoods are this? You're screaming like a mad woman. So you're just taking it all in. Like that. So nobody knew.
So that day he hit me. It was the first time I told my best friend that Bumpy hit me. My best friend was like, was it the first time? It wasn't the first time, but I told her yes. I was so ashamed. I was filled with guilt, shame, and anger. My best friend is like, maybe talk to him and see what's going on. And I'm like, okay, let's try.
After the 2 miscarriages, it was very hard for me to give birth. And so I remember just lying on the floor of church and praying and asking God, give me a baby, because I was being beaten for not having a baby either. So I was just praying to God and just telling God, please give me a baby. I remember washing the church and just crying and praying and telling God, give me a baby. I don't know if you've ever prayed scriptures, because I remember praying scriptures. I remember just telling God, just the way you remembered Hannah, just remember me.
You were couple goals.
We were couple goals. I was traveling all over the world,
Shopping,
buying things for the
cars.
shops, for the business. We were doing well.
Yeah.
I was so sadly. I had no friends. The only friend I had was probably Jesus. And when I was being beaten, Jesus wasn't there. But yeah, I had no friends. The only friend I had was probably Jesus. And when I was being beaten, Jesus wasn't there.
See, God hates divorce.
God hates divorce.
Exactly.
But he hates divorce, but he loves the divorcee.
There we go.
Yes. He loves the divorcee.
Yes.
Yeah. And somehow divorce is allowed based on this. There's so much sin in this world right now. And that is where we find ourselves going the divorce way.
Yeah.
Not like the Western world. Clearly it was not working. We really tried with counseling. We really tried going back to the church and the people who married us. Our pastor was very instrumental in trying to get us back to, trying to make the marriage work.
Work for you guys.
Yeah, because we would meet after church with him and he will tell us, you need to go and do this, you need to go and do this in order to make this work.
That day I was hit. Week 1, I'm not going to work. After that, it got to a point where he would not allow me to leave the compound with my daughter. Whether I'm going to the shop, no. It got to a point, if he wanted to talk to me and he thought the conversation would get heated, he'd take our daughter to the mom to hold our daughter. And it was crazy. He'd come home, Bumpy would come to the house, we'd talk. He'd hit me. I had to be hit and then go back to his mom, take my daughter as though I've not been hit. This is okay. We were just talking. It was normal marital stuff. And go back to the house, now breastfeed my daughter while crying. And like, those are your options. I don't care. You want to leave? Go. Leave my child. And I'm like, I just pushed through him. I went upstairs and to the mom and was trying to take my daughter. As I was trying to take my daughter from my mom-in-law, I would see her turn around for me not to access my daughter and take her from her arms. And I just looked at her and I'm like, I asked, are you turning so that I don't take my daughter? Like, no, you know you're angry. And I'm like, what does that anger have to do with my child? This is my child. I gave birth to this child. I want to leave this marriage and I want to live with my child. Eventually, Bumpy's brother came in and I was not allowed to take the child after all.
I wasn't allowed friends. His family was my friend. And I wasn't seeing my dad as much because I don't know how I got excluded from having friendships. It was either church, work, home. That was it. That was the extent of my life. I had a driver, I had a bodyguard. Yeah, so it's not like I could come and have coffee with you. They'll go back and report me.
And how many kids do you have at this point?
First,
Yes.
he wanted another kid. But you know that thing that you had in the back of your mind that tells you do not get another child?
Don't.
Have one child that you know if shit goes south, you
Yes.
can take care of this child.
Yeah.
So I stayed 10 years before getting another child. I was afraid. I was like, so he called a committee. He called my mother, he called his mother, he called my church people. And I came home and I found people in my house waiting for me. And they were like, why don't you want to have another child? Yeah, I think I was brushing my teeth. And he asked me something about the shop. Or somebody had come to the shop and said I was beautiful. And somehow he had informers who would tell him things like those. So he said, baba wako amekuja kwa duka. And this is a fit man who was boxing. Lynn nilichapwa. I don't hear from this year.
Bumpy was not home, but she was. So I asked her, why are you home? She's like, Bumpy told me you're not okay. So I'm here to figure out why. I'm like, one, you're the reason number one among the reasons you're not okay. Came to our house, you are touchy with my husband after I specifically told you something. You didn't have the courtesy to come ask me if that's how it is. You just took Bumpy's side and went with it. And she says, in my defense, Bumpy is the man. I was like, okay.
If you're saying you did not grow up seeing this.
The structure was, and this is something Bumpy threw around in any situation, was you're raised by a single mom. You wouldn't know how households run. You wouldn't know anything about submission. And since honestly and genuinely, I did not know because I was raised by a single mom. I did not see her submit to somebody, especially at an older age, to see how submission goes. I'd believe it. And he would always say, but I know submission. I know the role of a man because he has both parents. So I was just like, okay, that makes sense.
I really do wonder about that because I don't want to come off. I know there's people who actually live by that, where the man says the final word.
Yeah.
You know, but I do wonder if it's right. You know, I don't think you should always be fighting with your partner if that's the agreement you've come into. But at what point does the woman have a little bit of a say?
At that time, I did not know when the woman had the say. Because according to him, who knows how submission works and how a household runs, he always said that the man has the final say. And since I always wanted to show that I'm a submissive woman and a woman who wants to be an added piece of value to him, I'd stick with that.
And so our relationship was okay at that point. I thought it was okay. We were young, so what do you know about being a husband and wife? And unfortunately, we both come from homes that don't have, right now I'm not seeing it as complete, but as in, there's this notion in the society where a father and a mother and a child is a complete family. But ideally, even as a child and a mother is still complete, a child and a father is still complete.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was thinking that because we didn't come from complete families, complete in quotes.
Yes.
Like I came from a single mom, he came from a single mom. Like right now we can do this together to make it a complete family.
Yeah. And who is paying for this? It's you. So you give him money to act like it's coming from him.
That is what I was actually taught. And I think, okay, but kufundishwa na dunia. Ile like, kuficha mwanamume, chukua pesa zako umpati.
Yes.
Asikuwe na aibu. And I did that a lot.
And he would gladly take the money.
Yeah. Yeah. Your expression on your face.
Tunaongea tu June.
Because remember, first of all, me, I'm a child raised by a single dad. How I reason, how I look at life is very different from maybe somebody raised in a two-parent home, be somebody raised by their mother.
Okay.
I wasn't raised with gender norms. Remember, I was raised by my dad.
Yeah.
My dad cooked.
Yeah.
My dad cleaned.
So you knew that it didn't matter who you are. If you're in this home, we all do the work.
Yes.
Okay.
So if my dad is cooking today, I'm cleaning the dishes. If I'm cleaning, I'm cooking, he's cleaning the dish. So the gender norms were not something for me. I just assumed that's how the world worked. And so here I am married with a baby, with somebody raised in a two-parent home, in a very patriarchal home that actually believes boys, shouldn't do certain...
Boys don't even enter the kitchen.
Yes. Sasa, you see the way now upbringing is different.
Yeah.
And I'm expected to do certain things. And I don't understand why.
First, you don't know what those things are.
Yes. And I don't understand why.
Okay.
Because why? Kwa nini? Si mtoto ni wako. So why can't you clean him? Like, I literally, and I would argue my points. Because I remember my dad, people used to say that time that, in Kikuyu say garari, argumentative.
Yeah.
Because in my dad's house, I was allowed to argue my points.
You could speak.
I could speak. I was allowed to argue.
Kumbe huku, he's never seen this before.
He's never seen this behavior.
Because his mother keeps quiet.
Yes. And his mother is a certain way. And now here comes a person who, remember, child, argumentative. And let me tell you, I used to be argumentative. I was not going to let you win. I will argue. You will beat me, but I will still argue.
My goodness.
Yes. Because, I'm
this
used
is
to
what
winning.
You know. And
this is how I grew up. Like you have to, my dad would say, prove your point.
And because he's a teacher, he was doing it for you to grow
so
and
like,
think.
Why do I have to wash dishes? Why can't you wash dishes?
We're two of us
what's the
here?
difference? We're the two of us. And up on your,
Vita
slightly like
ilianza
this,
sasa.
You get a nice slap. And I'm horrified. I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, this is how marriage looks like.
Oh my.
So you get beaten for arguing. And the argumentative little girl, somewhere along this marriage, died. And started understanding that if you argue, if you try to say this is who you are,
or
if you
to
present
prove
yourself,
a point,
yes, you get beaten.
So you shut down slowly.
And the violence continued. I think I was a child who had an idea of what love looked like. And also, for people who've come from broken homes, there's this idea inside us that we can do this. We can build a home. We can build a home.
Because again, I come from a broken one. Mine has to be stable.
Mine has to be stable.
Exactly.
And so I kept on going back.
Yeah.
Even though there was no foundation, we really didn't have a good foundation. I wanted to prove. And my dad kept on telling me, this is not the man for you all the time.
Yeah.
Njeri, you need to know yourself. You're still a child. Now you're finished college, you've started work. I think just live by yourself and just see the world. There's nothing you know. But I was so determined.
Yes.
I wanted to be a good wife. I wanted to prove to the world that just because I came from brokenness doesn't mean that I couldn't hold a home together. And so we started living together.
Yeah.
And that's how he passed on.
Sorry.
Yeah, he got a heart attack. Yeah, and that was the last time I saw him. I think that was the last type of love that I ever experienced from a man. Because he loved me as if I was his own, and he was actually my stepdad. Because, for example, let me give you a case of mine. Through our therapy sessions, I realized my need for love was very big. Because your therapist goes like, June, you didn't see this red flag? I'm like, me, I didn't see it. And this one, me, I didn't see it. And this one, because what did I want? I wanted love. And that is why I would give my money, give, because nataka love at the end of the day. And nitatafuta do, fanya kenye tu utafanya, mimi nitatafuta do nitakupatia.
Bora unipende.
Bora tu nipende.
Were you looking for, sorry to ask, but were you looking for the father figure in this man?
Yes. Yes, I was. Since my dad passed, there hasn't been a father figure in my life. I can't remember anyone I can say that who stood up after him and saying that now I can show you how a man loves a woman, ama nini kabisa.
Going back to the state of mind you were at when the beatings would happen, what was making you stay? Was it a hope? Was it still love for this man? Was it almost like a shock? Like, what is the psychology of somebody in that situation?
Mine was both hope and love. And truth be told, was the validation. Not having a dad for the longest time, I wanted that manly validation. And I didn't know how much I needed it until I was in that situation. It mattered to me that he chose me. I wanted him to choose me. I wanted him to see me. I wanted him to pick me and say it's me. So with that in mind, and me loving him endlessly, and hoping that one day it's going to be me, it made me stay. Now that I've seen it now with my daughter, being there and the validation I needed and what I went through to get that validation, I know that what I would have wanted, not to end up in such a situation, would be validation from home. My uncles, now that I'm older, are able to have conversations with me. So I'd feel validated. I'd date somebody and check with my uncle because we're at that level. I just wish such conversations started when I was younger. Because honestly, if they did, and if they were that actively present as they are now, situations would have been different. Funny thing is, yes, I did. I never said those dark parts. Why? Because Bumpy and Bumpy's mom always told me that marriage stuff are never told to anybody else other than the household you're in. So according to Bumpy's mom, it was, if you're not able to solve it with Bumpy, come tell me. So I tell her, yes. So I've told Bumpy's mom. Bumpy's mom is like, oh, you're the one with the temper, reduce your temper. So I'd always fit into that. So if I know I have a temper, instead of speaking when angry, I'd speak the following day. He came, pulled my hair, slapped me, punched me, and I'm like, why? And then at the end, he pushed me towards the wall that I hit the corner of the wall. So I had like, my head was swollen. And he apologizes as usual. And I also apologize. And he apologizes as usual. And I also apologize. And that was a cycle for like 2-3 months. Also at a space where I also know I will not fully blame my partner for what happened. I had a role to play as well. I will now work on things that I know were genuinely not correct, not the ones that I was told are not correct because they wanted to get their way.
The emotional violence continued, more of insecurities, I would say. And now we both had anger issues. I would even admit I have anger issues. Sasa mimi nilikuwa naitwa mdomo pistol. Because maneno zenye zinatoka kwa mdomo yangu
Ni pistol.
Ni pistol.
Chu.
And even I remember at some point I had actually told him that he kind of filled that gap at some point. But again, I needed to deal with it by myself instead of having him fill that gap.
June, it's the owning up for me. God, it's the owning up for me. It's you being able to look yourself in the mirror right now and say, this was my fault.
Yeah.
This is where I went wrong as an individual.
Yeah.
It's, you are not even doing the blame game here.
No.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, no, for me, like, that's beautiful.
Really?
Because true healing starts when we start to own up.
Yeah.
What was my contribution in this? Where would I, like, what would I have done right in this? So even owning up is part of the healing process. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so the divorce classes, I graduated last Saturday.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We dealt with so many things, and I think that has also helped my healing. I am a better individual now. I know where I went wrong, as you said. I know what I shouldn't have allowed, but I allowed it.
Yeah.
I know also him, he has his issues. We are both, in this world, hakuna mtu perfect. Hakuna mtu perfect. We all had our issues, but we dealt with them in not a very nice way. And right now, I know if I were to look for another relationship, I know what I want. Like, I have clarity right now.
I was sad I didn't have friends. First of all, I wasn't allowed friends. His family was my friend. And I wasn't seeing my dad as much because I don't know how I got excluded from having friendships. It was either church, work, home. That was it. That was the extent of my life. I had a driver, I had a bodyguard. Yeah, so it's not like I could come and have coffee with you. They'll go back and report me.
I told my best friend of now everything. One day I just sat down and I told her of the 3 Psalms, of all the heating and everything. And she's like, you can't do this. You have a daughter. It can't go on. And I was like, yes. But every time I said yes, it's true, it can't go on, I still stayed in that marriage. Made no sense. I was only allowed to breastfeed her, and on breastfeeding, they all stood there as I breastfed until she fell asleep. At this point, I have just texted my best friend what has just happened. My best friend is like, I can't take this anymore. You're hurt, I'm not okay, and I'm afraid you're going to die. She texted my mom. She called my mom and told her everything, from the 3 Psalms to me being hit to everything. I'm crying. I'm trying to understand, when did it get to this point? Like, when did I even let it get to this point? And it was crazy. My mom is like, no.
A conversation with my therapist, and my therapist said, have you gone back and just told Njeri that she was okay?
Yeah,
That
that
she was
Njeri who was in
fine.
that
That Njeri
situation.
that went through that,
Yeah.
it's okay, that now you occupy space, that you're a person now, and it's okay to have gone through all those things, and it's okay to have gone through all those things.
Hey, so tukarudiana tena. Right now that I think of it, that was a very big mistake. It was a very big mistake, but maybe that's why tuko hapa right now, ndo maana tulirudiana, that's why tuko hapa.
Yeah.
God has his own ways. And I know that God still loves me. I'm his child. At the end of the day, I'm his child. Even if I'm going through this separation and eventually I'm going to file for divorce, I'm still his child and he loves me. And one person even said maybe he used this process in order to strengthen me and maybe even inspire other women out there, to let them know that there is life after divorce, there is life after separation. And we should just know that the things that happen to us in our lives, they happen for a purpose. We might not know it right now. Like right now, I'm actually realizing why this had to happen.
And I do want to also point out that it's usually the most dangerous for the woman when she decides to leave.
Yeah.
So publicly declaring it to this person is probably not the best way to do it, like you did. And I'm only saying this for anyone who is listening, man or woman.
Yes.
Because, it could go either way.
Yes.
Yeah, and for those of you in the audience who do not know the kind of organization she runs, it's called Usikimie. You can check it, see the wonderful work she's doing with those men and women. I love that you take men into, because they have been, it's like we think men don't go through abuse, right? I love that you take even men too.
And now you are here inspiring so many people, including men. And I think you honestly need to speak to more people, men included, not just women. I think you have it in you.